The topic I'm treating is Violence Monitoring Report, a trend analysis, 2008-2012, and I'll put 2016 in brackets because this trend analysis that I'm going to do had a structured focus in the 2008 and 2012 election. In the 2016 election, we did not have the kind of selection of constituencies that we did in the previous monitoring exercise. So we did a nationwide monitoring of the violence activities. And so if we should put the nationwide analysis to the specific case studies, then it will distort the trend analysis. And that is why I put the 2016 in that bracket. But still, we'll be able to establish the trend in this presentation. One will look at the conflict-prone areas. Then we also would want to highlight the election risk indicators that were used, and then we offer some recommendations. Let me start by looking at this work that was produced by the KAIPTC prior to the 2016 election. There was a book that was titled Democracy and Electoral Violence in Ghana. And in that book, there was a chapter that was produced by Lartey and Ansah. And we looked at the political parties and the kind of security architecture they have. And we noted that there were actually 4 different levels of security that they put in place. And so these 4 levels have been categorized into 2. We look at the strategic level and then the operational level. At the strategic level, we have the security advisors. And here you may have some of the retired security officers or couples who have also decided to join some of the political parties. They are retired, so they are no longer in service. And they provide advice to the political party. Sometimes they become part of the political party security committees. So they offer advice on national security policies, and some of these things can find their way into the manifestos that the political parties produce. So there could be a provision in their manifesto that talks about how they would look at security at the national level if they have any reforms or policy restructuring of the security sector. These are the people who offer advice in that regard. They may not be part of the political party security operations on the ground. Theirs is actually at the strategic level at the top. The second is the consultants who are, they could be private security advisors who offer their services to the political parties for fees, so they charge. And sometimes they may also be engaged to train some of the bodyguards and the other security personnel that also help the political parties. And their services may be hired both within Ghana or even outside Ghana. They may not have any strict political affiliation to that political party. Then at the operational level, we have the officers. And here I'm talking about security officers that are assigned from the mainstream security sector. So it could be the police service who would assign some security officers to candidates of the political parties. So now that we are going into the campaign, some of the political parties may request for such services from the police service or any other. And then based on the assessment of that request, they are given such personnel. They may not be part of the political party grassroots security architecture. And then we also have the operatives, and here they should be in inverted commas, because these are the grassroots security people that the political parties recruit. And most of them have found their way into what we call the vigilante groups that our chair mentioned in his introductory remarks. So they may include the macho men, some bodyguards, private security, or individuals who, because of their affiliation with a political party, would want to offer their services to candidates and all that. So you'll notice that we have these levels, and most of the time they have strong affiliation to the political parties, and sometimes they are promised jobs into the mainstream security sector if the party is in power or they win power and all that. And so those are some of the things you would want to look at. And so in that same work that was done in the 2016 monitoring, our colleagues went into the field and identified about 16 of these vigilante groups. Most of them were actually based in Tamale. So our colleagues spent a lot of time in Tamale and the Yendi area, and they identified all these actors. Some of them strongly affiliated to the National Democratic Congress, and then the NPP, those who have their base in Accra, and the others. Let me say that in reality, we have more than this. These were the identifiable groups, and even now they've increased, because if you look at it critically, we don't have the Hawks represented here, but we noticed that they were inaugurated, if I should put it that way, in Kumasi before recently. And as I was saying, some of them may not be part of this identifiable groups. They may exist as individuals attached to political candidates. It could be the member of parliament or the candidate who is contesting at the parliamentary level. They may not be part of this group. And so even at the constituency level, candidates who are contesting at the parliamentary level may have their own groups. So the number here is very, very conservative. So coming back to the work that we did in 2008 and 2012, we did a sample of constituencies that we thought were flashpoint areas. So there was some kind of analysis to identify the potential flashpoint areas. And so these were some of the constituencies that were identified, also categorized into three main groups. So we had a northern zone. So at the time, the Yendi crisis had not been resolved, and we still had pockets of conflict in the northern part of the country. So some curfew were imposed in some of the existing conflict areas. So we put security zone there. And then the competitive or the swing regions, Brong-Ahafo, Greater Accra, Western, Central, and Eastern. And then the traditional strongholds, Ashanti, and then the Volta region. So these were some of the constituencies that we identified for that study. That is what I refer to as the structured and monitoring that we did in the 2008 and the 2012 election. In the 2016 election, we did the countrywide study. And so if we should impose it on this, it would distort the trend. And that is why I put the 2016 into brackets. So yes, if we look at this map, there are two of them here, one on our right and the other one to the left. This one, so the one here is showing some of the by-elections that we have run since 1997 or so. And the blue area is indicating where there were no violence, and then the red indicating where we had violence in those constituencies. So notably, you would see that Tripoli, we had serious issue there. Talensi, we had issue. Rapa, In 2009, we had issues there. The Atiwa is also featuring here. Akwatia is also here. But it's refreshing to also note that some of the areas did not witness any violence. Let me say that the Ayawaso West Worgon incident is not captured here. And so as we keep updating the monitoring, it will feature here. So it will be somewhere in the Greater Accra region. Now, this is the map showing where most of the vigilante groups had their base. But it does not mean that their activities are only localized. It could spread across the country. As I said, most of them in the northern region. Now, with the redemarcation of the regions, we would also have to update this map to show where exactly they are, keeping up to date with the new redemarcation of the region. Let me say that the Hawks is not captured here, but we would also have to identify them in this particular map. Now, the indicators we use in analyzing the incidents, we also categorize them into three: the minor incidents, the moderate incidents, and then the major incidents. And the minor incidents, we have the use of intemperate language, rumors and allegations. There are a lot of them. We have media bias, and we know over the period, the Media Foundation for West Africa has been doing a lot of work trying to track conversations in the media. And in the 2016 election, they did quite a good work in also naming and shaming some of these politicians who were spewing violence language in the media. We have political campaign, destruction of posters, party posters and all that. So we're captured as minor incidents. The moderate incidents, we have intimidation, and we are hearing a lot of intimidation even in this registration exercise. Disruption of rallies, we've not come to rallies yet, and no public order abuse. That is when you have political party having their rallies, especially in the northern area, the use of motorbikes, they don't regard any traffic regulations at all. Some of them have actually had accidents and have died and all that. And all those things are there. Then we have the major incidents, the physical harm, damage to property, the group clash, and the shooting incidents. And already we've been recording shooting incidents in this registration exercise. I have abbreviated them in the next slide. So if we see this is defacement of posters, we have intimidation, shooting, and all that. But this represents the all the incidents that we have highlighted. And you see how they are spiking. The use of intemperate language is very high up there. We also have defacement of posters. We also see physical harm, abuse, and attacks, shooting, intimidation, threat of violence, disruption of rallies, and all that. Then we have, if you go into the various regions or the clusters that we have, in the northern zone, you'll notice that we have some of the constituencies, almost all the constituencies recorded incidents. Tripoli, which has been hit by election violence, also saw a lot of incidents, and many others. Let me say that here, the minimum incidents, and these are the number of occurrences we had. And so you have close to 36 incidents happening. In this stronghold zone, you can see that the maximum is like 17. So there were more incidents happening in the northern zones than in the strongholds. And almost all the constituencies that we selected also had recorded incidents in different forms in their strongholds. Then in the swing regions, as you can see, yes, again here, we have over 35% number of incidents that occurred, especially in Ashaman, and then the other constituencies also followed. And let me say that these incidents were the ones that we identified in the selected constituencies. There were incidents that happened across the country that did not feature in these ones. Yeah. But what we're doing was that we do this, and then we have information relayed to the police for them to follow up on some of these things in the period. So if we should look at the trend analysis for the minor incidents, something that is emerging is that all the indicators we have here started off very high, the period prior to the elections, and then during the election period, they declined, and they declined further in the post-election phase. And so that is why a forum like this is very important, so that we can begin the period, our intervention early, to do our advocacy early, so that we are able to curtail the incidents, because really we have seen that when you combine the analysis, the monitoring, and the intervention, we see a reduction in that regard. So if we are taking action now, then it's very useful. Let me just point to some of the minor incidents that sometimes we overlook. My focus will not be on postal sites 3 and 5, and then also not on 1 and 2. But this one is interesting because you see this one, it's not physical violence, not attack on the person, but it gives an indication what is happening in the constituency. So you have the candidate poster, which is defaced with an external substance right in the face. This is interesting because here you have the MPP poster there, and then the NDC poster had been placed to cover the picture of the candidate. So you are not seeing the full poster there. And as a result, you are seeing also the NDC poster. The candidate face is also painted, so you are not seeing anything. If you go to those areas and you see these things, that gives you an indication of what is happening in those constituencies. So they might not trigger violence immediately, and that is why we are saying some of the minor incidents can trigger moderate incidents, and from there you have major incidents happening. So the focus should not only be on the major incidents, but we have to look at the minor incidents as well. The trend, as I have said, even for the moderate incidents, you would also see that a lot of them will be high, but as we get close to the election, it drops, and then after post-election, after the election, then we have the escalation of the and what I have said is that once we begin the intervention, then we see a drop in that regard. And same for the major incidents, as you can also see here. So I said that I've not included the 2016 because that would distort the map. But 2016 also saw a lot of incidents. But from 2018, you see a rise in 2012, and we saw a rise in 2016. And so if we do not take steps, then our optimism for Ghana still becoming a useful lesson for the others to follow may not occur. And that is why, so that is the trend actually. This is also showing the trend. So ours is to say that for the major incidents, we can begin to admonish and have dialogue, even though it may seem that opportunity for dialogue is diminishing. But once we have the Peace Council beginning to come into the fore and helping to bring the parties together, we will all support to moderate what is happening. But major incidents, And this is where the police will come in and the security agencies to treat some of these things as criminal matters and they handle them appropriately. Let me end it here. Thank you very much.